Hello everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with another Adeptus Custodes painting tutorial, and today we are doing the Golden Boys. Yes, the generic scheme that you see. I don't know the name for them. Is it the Companions? The Dread Host? I can't remember. I know that they're all different things, but we're just going to be doing the generic Golden Boys box art today. So, without much further ado, he's been primed in grey Seer, and the first colour we're going to use is Retributor Armour. I'm going to be using this to paint in all of his armour panels, funnily enough. Who'd have thought? Now, there's not a lot of science to this. I'm just going to get this Retributor Armour all over this armour, just like this. And so with that done, what we now want to do is we want to make a roughly 1-to-1 mix of contrast medium and Fyreslayer Flesh. And we're going to use this to shade all over our gold armour. Just like this. Now don't worry if it's a little too dark or kind of reddy. We are going to buff it right back up. And so with that done, you should now have some beautifully shaded gold armor. So what we want to do is we want to brighten that right back up. And the color we were going to make is a 1-to-1 mix of Retributor Armour and Sycorax Bronze. Now the reason we're using Sycorax Bronze here is because it introduces an element of the antique, but it's also very, very shiny. So it just makes them very glittery and very kind of, well, just awesome to look at. So what we want to do is we want to just start picking out all the flats and all the details, just leaving that Fyreslayer Flesh in the deepest recesses, like that there. And so what I'll then do is I'll then paint in the little details. There, like that. So you just want to go all over like this. And with that done, you should now have some beautifully shiny armor. You can see it just really reflecting off of my lights there. Just really playing off that armor. It looks really cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some highlights to all that gold. And the color we're going to make is roughly 2 parts Stormhost Silver to 1 part Retributor Armour. So we want this to be a really kind of a very, very pale, bright white gold. And all we want to do is we want to just start picking out all of our edges. Just like this. So I've done a bit of this on the back. You can see now just how beautifully shiny it is with those highlights applied. So you just want to go around like this, and then we'll come back. And with that highlight applied, our gold armor is now finished. You can see the way the light plays off it. It's really beautiful and alluring to look at. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on and we're going to paint the red details. Now that might seem a bit weird because there is some silver that we could do, but the reason we're not going to do the silver just yet is that we've got these chains and things just down here on the back. So we want to be able to kind of not have to kind of dance around them as we do them, because the red is in fact going to be the hair and the cloak. So the color that we're going to be using is Blood Angels Red. And all we want to do is we just want to get a fair whack of this on our brush, and then just start painting this all over the top of those red details. just like this. And with that Blood Angel's red applied, what we now want to do is we want to use some Evil Sunz Scarlet to highlight all of our red areas. So for example, up here on the hair, you just want to pick out the strands. Just like that. Whereas on the cloak, we want to pick out the raised areas and the edges. Just like this. And with that done, what we now want to do is take some thinned down Fire Dragon Bright and then apply this as a spot highlight to all of those highlights that we've just done. So for example, down here on the cloak, we just want to pick out that corner. Just there like that. Whereas, for example, along this large fold here, just want to do a narrow Fire Dragon Bright highlight. Going along about half of it. Just like that. Whereas on the hair, we want to pick out the tips. And the occasional strand towards the top. Just like that, as well as around here. And with that done, what we want to do now is want to blend all of those highlights together and add a little bit more shade into that cloak. So the colour that we're going to make is a roughly 6 parts contrast medium to 1 part Flesh Tearers red mix. And what we're going to do, similarly on the hair, not just the cloak, just going to paint this mixture all over the top. Like this to give it a real deep, rich crimson hue. And so with that done, it's still wet and drying, but for the sake of time, we're just going to move on. You can see it's just glistening, but it's already looking pretty awesome. With that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to start working on all of our silver details on him. Again, we can just ignore the halberd if we want to. I'm going to do it, but you don't have to do it right now. It's entirely up to you. So the colour that we're going to use is some thinned down Iron Warriors. We just want to start picking out all that silver detail. So for example, around here on the back, we've got these areas just like this. And the vents just above it. We do have those chains on his cloak, but I'm not going to touch them just yet. So with that Iron Warriors applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to shade all of those silver details as well as start work on all of the black. And the colour that we're going to be using for that is Basilicanum Grey. Now what we want to do is we want to take small amounts of this Basilicanum Grey to use to shade our silver like that, just being really careful around all of that gold, like so. But what we also want to do, as I say, is use this to do the black. So for example, here on the gun or the grenade launcher, we want to shade that silver detail there on the end, just getting it all over like that. And then we'd also want to apply this Basilicanum Grey all over the top of that Basilicanum Grey coating, weapon casing. And with that done, what we're now going to do is take some black Templar. I'm going to use this to paint in all of our black details. So areas like the Guardian Spear, the casing that we've done with the Basilicanum Grey, we just want to go all over like this. And with that done, what we're now going to do is take some Gore-Grunta Fur. I'm going to use this on all of our leather details, including the paturages and his belt. And with that done, what we then want to do is take some Apothecary White and want to apply this to all of his ropes. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to colour in the rest of those gold details. So we've got areas like the eagle here on the halberd, we've got the wing up there, we've also got the decorative features on the scabbard. So we just want to get some Retributor Armour and we want to start painting it all over these areas. Just like this. Again, we're not worrying about doing any highlights just yet. We're just wanting to get it all base coated and up to code. What we can also do is use this Retributor Armour to colour in any bolt casings or ammo casings. So we've got some in the Guardian Spear and we've got some in the Ballistaris grenade launcher as well. And with that done, again, just before we shade it and highlight it, what we're going to do is we're going to grab some Volupus Pink. We're going to use this on all the soft wraps on all the weapons. So we've got this little bit here. Like that. And we've got this one here as well. And we've got one on the Misericordia as well. And with that done, what we now want to do is take some Fyreslayer Flesh. I'm going to use this to shade all of our gold details that we've just painted in. We don't need to thin this one down because we're only doing small details here. Reasonably small details in comparison to these big chunky legs, for example. And with that done, our custodian is now pretty much ready for all of his highlighting and so on. So we are going to start with that highlighting, and the colour that we're going to use first is Corax White. I'm going to use this to highlight all of his ropes. So we just want to pick out all of those strands. Just like this. And next up, we're going to use some Light Ochre to highlight our leather details. And next up, we're going to highlight all that silver using some Iron Hand Steel. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to use some Liberator Gold to highlight all of our gold details that we've just painted in. So we don't need to do the armor, this is just all the extra bits. Because the armor's already finished. And with that done, what we're now going to do is going to use some Dawnstone to highlight all of our black details. And with that done, well, what we want to do now is we want to paint in that energy blade. And so, the colour that we're going to use first is Talassar Blue. And all we do is we take this on our brush. Now I'm using a small layer brush from Citadel. What we want to do is just want to, at the top of the blade here, want to make contact with the model. And in one big broad brush stroke, just make sure that we've got the whole blade kind of selected. Just want to pull it down just like that. Try not to leave try not to break contact, as it were. And then just very quickly get in there. And in there as well. And with that Talassar Blue applied, what we now want to do is take some Ultramarines Blue, really small amount of it, not very much at all. We want to run this around the shadow of the blade. I've still got a little too much on there. So what I mean by that is this little area here. Just want to run this Ultramarines Blue. Just like that. And with that Ultramarines Blue applied, what we now want to do is take some Corax White. We want to use this to highlight our blade. Got a little bit too much there. Just use my thumb to wipe that off whilst it's still wet. And with that done, what we now want to do is take some grey Seer. And we want to use this to draw in some tiny little lightning strikes. Just like this. And with that done, what we now want to do is take a small amount of Corax White and just add little highlights here and there in amongst all that lightning. So add a little bit just around here, around there. And with that done, what we now want to do is create a roughly 8 parts contrast medium to 1 part Talassar Blue mix. We're going to use this as a glaze over the top of all of that highlight work and all that lightning that we've just done. Just like that, just to blend it all together. And so with that done, what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Talassar Blue once again. I'm going to use this to colour in all of the gems that are around him. So we've got one right here on his tummy, just like this. And with that done, what we now want to do is take a small amount of Black Templar. And we want to add this over the top of these gems, but only in like the top left corner in a circular motion. Let's just add a little bit of shading, a little bit of depth to the gem, so we're leaving a blue edge to it in the bottom right corner. And with that done, what we now want to do is use some blue horror to highlight the bottom right corner. Just like that. And with that blue horror highlight applied, what we then want to do is we want to use a small amount of Corax White to add a little dot in the opposite corner to where we've just placed our highlight. Just like this. And with that done, our custodian is finished. So, all that's left to do is his base. Now, once again, these are Sector Imperialis bases that I'm using. So, I am going to show you how I'm going to do this one. This one's nice and simple. The first colour I'm using is Wyldwood. I'm going to be using this for all this open ground that we've got around that kind of sewer grate. Should we say that is? Why not? And with that done, what we now want to do is use some Iron Warriors to paint in this area just down here. And with that done, what we're now going to do is use some Basilicanum Grey. Use this to shade our silver. Now just be careful here, don't use loads. The instinct will be to use a lot to get it done quickly, but if you use too much at once, you'll drown it and it will look very patchy and weird. Just want to be very careful here. And with that done, what we now want to do is pick out those raised areas and the highlights with some Iron Hand Steel. And next up, we want to give all of that Wyldwood a very light dry brush of Tyrant Skull. Just gently catching the raised details just there. And with that done, what we're now going to do is colour in the rim at the base. Now I'm going to be using some Corvus Black. Just to give it that final flourish. And there we have it. Our classic Custodian is now finished in his golden armor, ready to defend Terra, the Emperor, and anybody of note to the death. When I say anybody of note, I of course mean Rabute Gilliman, or, you know, anyone of that ilk. It's a lot of fun to do. I do really enjoy painting gold. I really love the Hammers of Sigmar, for example, and the Sigvald miniature that we did very recently. Gold is a very, very cool colour, and it just looks so beautiful and shiny, particularly with that contrast providing the really, really deep shading, and then those lovely metallic mixes really bringing out the gold for all to see. It's a little bit weird that the shoulder pads don't have any red on that. I grant that. This has been pointed out to me already. It's because the box art doesn't have any gold on the shoulder pads, so we have to follow the box art. At least that's what we're doing. If you did want to do red on those shoulder pads, it's just the same as the Solar Watch or the Shadow Keepers as well. Just a bit of Blood Angels red on there, and that will do you a world of good. If you enjoyed this one and you'd like to support me further, like these legends on the screen, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. And if you'd like to stay up to date, make sure to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.